The movie opens by depicting the daily life of a typical housewife. In the kitchen, we see a woman preparing breakfast with care, arranging everything perfectly on the table. Despite her busyness, she watches over her daughter, ensuring she is safe, loved, and happy. Even though she's exhausted, she keeps pouring out her affection. However, all of this becomes overwhelming for Kim Ji-young. Her life feels like a never-ending cycle of repetitive chores. She handles everything, from bathing her child to putting them to bed, without a moment of rest for herself. Although she maintains a smile, Ji-young is worn out inside, missing the days when life felt less stressful. Her responsibilities as a mother and wife have taken over her dreams. We then shift to Ji-young's husband, Jung Dae-hyun. He's seen speaking with a psychiatrist, expressing concern for his wife, who seems to have changed. Ji-young has become more irritable, quick to anger, and struggles to sleep. These changes weigh heavily on Dae-hyun, making him anxious, prompting him to seek professional advice. As the psychiatrist listens, Dae-hyun explains that she was once a cheerful and energetic wife now appears drained and downhearted. The scene transitions to Ji-young at a park with her child. She's sipping coffee and gently swinging her legs, but her mood shifts when she overhears people gossiping behind her. They express jealousy toward housewives who, in their view, get to relax while their husbands work. Uncomfortable, Ji-young quickly leaves the park and returns home, where she discovers her child is sick. She promptly prepares medicine and gives her child a bath. A little later, Dae-hyun arrives home early and assists her with the bath. Afterward, Ji-young cooks dinner, and while they eat, she admits to Dae-hyun that she's been feeling easily irritated. Noticing her fatigue, Dae-hyun suggests skipping the usual New Year's visit to his parents and taking a vacation instead. But Ji-young, despite her stress, insists on sticking to their routine and visiting his parents' home, as she's done every year. New Year's Day arrives and they head to Dae-hyun's parents' house. Ji-young's mother-in-law asks her to prepare a large batch of dumplings, and though Dae-hyun suggests they just buy food to ease Ji-young's burden, his mother insists on homemade cooking. Caught between the wishes of her husband and her mother-in-law, Ji-young ultimately chooses to follow her mother-in-law's request. Dae-hyun, feeling sorry for his wife, tries to help by washing dishes, but his mother quickly stops him, saying kitchen duties are meant for women. Ji-young feels uncomfortable but continues on. Like many daughters-in-law, Ji-young wakes up early to help in the kitchen. Her in-laws occasionally gift her things, and although she used to be happy about receiving gifts, she's disappointed to find the gift is an apron, which subtly reinforces her kitchen responsibilities during the holiday. While everyone relaxes in front of the TV, Ji-young is still hard at work in the kitchen. Understanding his wife's weariness, Dae-hyun decides to pack up and leave early. However, their plans change when Dae-hyun's older sister returns from overseas, and they end up staying longer. The contrast in treatment between Ji-young and Dae-hyun's sister becomes clear. Dae-hyun's sister casually complains about how tiring it is to stay with her in-laws and expresses her desire to rest at her rest house. Without hesitation, she asks Ji-young to prepare snacks and desserts, treating her like a servant. This is when Ji-young's condition escalates, and a different side of her surfaces. This version of Ji-young sternly rebukes her mother-in-law for the unfair treatment, and she does it without even realizing. Alarmed, Dae-hyun quickly ushers Ji-young out of the house, and they head to her parents' home. Once there, Ji-young, visibly exhausted, retreats to her room and falls asleep. As she rests, memories of her childhood flood her mind. She recalls how her grandmother instilled the belief that women were less valuable than men, pressuring Ji-young's mother to have a son. Years later, when Ji-young's younger brother was born, her father began treating her and her sister differently, even bringing different gifts for them. These painful moments from her past still linger, and Ji-young felt hurt and jealous back then. After the holidays, life returns to its usual rhythm, but Ji-young has no recollection of the outburst she had before. Worried about her, Dae-hyun gently suggests she see a psychiatrist, mentioning how many mothers suffer from postpartum depression. Dae-hyun is consumed with guilt, recognizing that his wife is far from happy, and feels helpless watching her struggle. Ji-young begins reflecting on her past, remembering that she had been a bright and ambitious young woman. However, her career didn't flourish as she had hoped because her company didn't support married women. The management believed that women who were married wouldn't be suited for high responsibility roles. Her boss, Kim, often praised Ji-young's work, acknowledging her intelligence and skills. But despite recognizing her potential, Kim couldn't offer Ji-young a promotion due to her recent marriage and plans to start a family. Kim herself was a successful career woman, but she, too, felt the strain of balancing work and family life, often feeling guilty for being away from her child. Back in the present, Ji-young continues with her daily routine, dropping her child off at school. Afterward, she's invited by a group of mothers to join them for tea. During their chat, Ji-young discovers that she's not alone in having had to set aside her aspirations. Many of these women were also high achievers in school and had promising futures, but their lives shifted after they became mothers. This meeting makes Ji-young reflect on the idea of returning to work. She briefly considers taking a simple job as a cashier at a bakery. Just then, a former colleague reaches out to her with a job opportunity. Her old boss, Kim, had resigned and started a new company. The news stirs up a lot of thoughts in Ji-young. Returning to work might help her regain a sense of independence and relieve the stress she feels at home. But at the same time, she worries about balancing work with her duties as a mother, especially with a young child to care for. Meanwhile, Dae-hyun is consumed with his own work, but he's also trying to educate himself on postpartum depression in an effort to support his wife. He feels saddened and worried about the changes he's seen in Ji-young, who no longer seems like the woman he knew before becoming a mother. He's frustrated by his inability to help and starts seeking advice from other men, hoping for guidance on how to help Ji-young. Unfortunately, the conversations don't offer him any real solutions. Despite his confusion, Dae-hyun doesn't give up and continues to research and learn more about postpartum depression, wanting to better understand what Ji-young is experiencing. His efforts, even though they leave him feeling uncertain, are a testament to his deep love and concern for her. That evening, after returning from work, Ji-young is quietly folding clothes. Dae-hyun gently suggests that she try exercising to relieve her stress, but Ji-young declines. Instead, she shares that she's been thinking about going back to work. This worries Dae-hyun, as he's concerned about her health and how she'll handle the stress. Later that night, Ji-young's other personality emerges once again. This other side of her urges Dae-hyun to appreciate his wife more and confronts him with past traumas that have long been buried, revealing just how deeply Ji-young's emotional struggles run. The next morning, Ji-young wakes up with no recollection of what had happened the night before. Feeling puzzled by the situation, she considers seeing a psychiatrist. However, when she sees how expensive it is, she decides to go back home, thinking she can manage without it. Since she feels somewhat normal, time passes, but after reconnecting with her friends, unpleasant memories from her past begin to resurface. One vivid memory from middle school haunts her. She was followed by a man on the bus, and in her panic, she asked a nearby mother for help. When her father came to pick her up, instead of comforting her, he scolded her for wearing a short skirt, making her feel as if the harassment was her fault for how she dressed. This moment left a deep scar, teaching her that women are often blamed for their own mistreatment. On that same day, Dae-hyun's mother came by for a visit. However, upon learning that Ji-young wasn't feeling well, she chose not to interact with her directly and instead bought herbal medicine, thinking that would help. Around this time, Dae-hyun had to leave for a business trip, leaving Ji-young alone to manage things at home. Despite feeling down, Ji-young decided to visit her mother's house for her birthday celebration. On the way, she juggled her baby and her bags, and as she walked, her mind drifted into memories of the past. She remembered how her mother had once dreamed of becoming a teacher, but had to let go of that ambition to take care of her children. During the birthday gathering that night, Ji-young's aunt kept making remarks about how Ji-young hadn't put any effort into her appearance. Later, Ji-young voiced her frustration about the expectation that she should buy food for the family and expressed her discomfort when people implied her younger brother shouldn't be helping in the kitchen. These seemingly minor comments about gender roles and expectations weighed heavily on her, reknitting her feelings of sadness and frustration. Despite all of this, there was a moment of happiness for Ji-young that evening. Spending time with her siblings brought her some joy, especially when they gathered around old photo albums reminiscing about their childhood. It was a bittersweet evening, filled with both painful reminders and moments of comfort with her family. The day Ji-young had been waiting for finally arrived. She met with Kim, who offered her a job, and luckily she got accepted. This moment triggered a flashback to when Ji-young was about to graduate. Back then, Ji-young didn't even want to take her graduation photos because she hadn't secured a job. Her father had supported this decision, telling her she didn't need a career, and that it would be better for her to just get married. That night, Ji-young, overjoyed about her new job, decorated the house with balloons and a cake to celebrate. Dae-hyun saw this but stayed quiet. It became clear that Ji-young had always dreamed of becoming a career woman. She had big ambitions and wanted to be successful in her job, hoping it would give her life a sense of accomplishment and meaning. However, this dream constantly clashed with the expectations of her family, especially the pressure from her parents and society to start a family soon. While having a child wouldn't drastically change Dae-hyun's life, for Ji-young, The decision to have a family would have huge consequences. She would need to focus not only on her career but also on motherhood. This made her feel trapped between her personal dreams and the expectations placed on her by others. Ji-young struggled to decide whether to follow her heart or meet these societal pressures. The next day, Ji-young eagerly searched for a nanny, but no one applied for the job. To help, Dae-hoon decided to take a year off work. In Korea, companies allow husbands to take paternity leave, though it can impact their careers. Seeing how much Ji-young wanted to pursue her job, Dae-hoon was willing to make sacrifices, even if it meant risking his career. This decision gave them hope, but not everyone agreed. Dae-hoon's mother was upset by the idea. She couldn't understand why a husband would take time off work while his wife was the one pursuing a career. Angry, she called Ji-young's mother, accusing Ji-young of ruining her son's career. When Ji-young's mother heard about this, she was heartbroken. She rushed over to check on her daughter and quickly realized how deeply Ji-young's mental health had been affected. Ji-young had begun to speak as if she were someone else, giving advice in a detached way without even realizing it. Witnessing her daughter's struggles, Ji-young's mother became furious with her husband for how he had raised their children. It became clear that Ji-young's father had always favored the boys in the family, believing they deserved more attention and resources than the girls. This unfair treatment had contributed to Ji-young's emotional and mental burdens. As days went by, Ji-young confided in her best friend about her frustrations and how restricted her life felt. One night, Dae-hoon finally revealed to Ji-young that she was suffering from depression and had developed another personality without even realizing it. At that moment, Ji-young started behaving like her grandmother. Seeing his wife in this state, Dae-hoon was overcome with sadness and guilt. The next morning, Ji-young's younger brother brought over some food, and he too noticed how differently their father had treated them growing up. It was a painful realization for both siblings. Eventually, Ji-young decided to visit a psychiatrist and began treatment. She also informed Kim, her former boss, about her mental health struggles. While undergoing therapy, Ji-young started writing in a diary, pouring out all her sadness and frustration onto the pages. This became her way of expressing her emotions. Ji-young also found the courage to stand up to those who judged her as a mother. She began speaking honestly about her difficulties, helping others understand the true challenges mothers face. Kim responded with kindness and understanding, offering support and helpful advice to guide Ji-young through her healing process. With this support from Kim and her colleagues, Ji-young grew stronger and more confident in her ability to overcome these times. Over time, Ji-young began to reconnect with her old self. Her diary entries were eventually published in a book titled Kim Ji-young. Though her journey to healing was not easy, the support she received from her family, friends, and psychiatrist made every step more bearable. Every day, Ji-young found herself getting closer to the peace and happiness she longed for. The film concludes with a powerful lesson: sometimes you need to write your feelings down, stand up to difficult in-laws, and seek therapy to truly understand yourself and find balance in life. It's like juggling donuts, challenging, but worth the effort. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and subscribe for more recaps. See you next time.